Good afternoon from Los Angeles and happy Wednesday. It's Alyssa Corm here and I am joined by Justin Nielsen. On today's show, we're going to review the action for the major indexes and take a look at a couple of stocks, including some IPOs, Justin.
Yeah. So we'll start out with Zscaler, something a little bit more mild, but then let's get into some of those red hot IPOs. And we'll start with Corsair Gaming and also Palantir Technologies, too, that have been on our radar a lot with IBD Live. And we'll kind of check in with those and start talking about exit strategies.
Yeah, some great lessons there. But first, let's talk about the major indexes. We did see the Nasdaq closing up about 0.5% today. The Dow took a bit of a breather, down 0.6%, while the S&P 500 fell 0.2%. So a string of a couple of nice gains here for the Nasdaq, closing above that 12,000 level once again and extending those gains today. A lot of good stuff to see here.
Yeah, I mean, getting above that 12,000 level, and here we are at closing highs. This is very good action. Now, of course, there's always that concern with, and this is something that Ken brought up on today's show on IBD Live, that we are starting to get maybe a little bit too bullish. You have the investors' intelligence number that came out with a level of bullishness that was very high. In fact, it was at levels that we haven't seen since the last two little pullbacks that we've had, September 2nd and mid-October. We're back at kind of those very bullish levels. Now, that doesn't mean we can't just break out from here and keep going, and eventually that is what's going to happen. You kind of make these tests and eventually you break out and go into those new highs. But it is worth kind of just keeping an eye on, because again, with that excessive bullishness, it's generally a contrarian indicator and something that kind of suggests, you have to be careful. And that's kind of be the theme of the day. Now, on the flip side, again, we kind of crossed this area of resistance around 12,000. Yesterday, for those of you that watch, keep an eye on Market School, we kind of have a power trend back on. That's generally a very good thing for the prospects of the market. Kind of suggests that you want to not necessarily sell too quickly on pullbacks, because you're in an overall uptrend that's very powerful. So there are a lot of things going for this market. More than anything, you've got a lot of stocks that are still setting up and still acting very, very well.
All right, and speaking of stocks acting well, one today is Zscaler. We saw a nice move up 4% for the security software stock, breaking out of a downward sloping trend line, Justin, as it continues to work on this double bottom pattern, but providing an early entry today for investors just about a week before the quarterly earnings report.
Yeah, so that's the big thing, is you have to just always be careful and know when your earnings reports are. So in this case, Zscaler, I believe, is on December 2nd. So you just have to kind of know that going into it. Like, are you going to be wanting to hold through earnings if you don't have much of a cushion? Because 1 week's time is not much time to get much of a cushion. But that being said, this is a setup that we've seen over and over in this market. This has been one of my favorite setups to be using on Swing Trader. And you can just look at CrowdStrike, one of the group mates in this computer software security, that's CRWD. This is one that you and I talked about on this show not too long ago, and it had a very similar look. It was crossing that downtrend. In this case, you had an opportunity to kind of get a little bit of an early start, and now you have some cushion before this one does its earnings, also on December 2nd. So you have a cushion before that breakout. Let's say it handles out here. Again, you've kind of got that early start, whether you have this as a swing trade and you kind of take those gains early, or if you hold on to this, kind of wait for a handle or a potential breakthrough of that cup, you're kind of sitting in a better spot using that downtrend line for that early entry.
All right, well, now let's shift our attention to the IPO market, which has some pretty interesting action, to say the least, Justin. I mean, look at Palantir here, ticker PLTR, up a stunning 22% for the day. I mean, we were looking at it out of this area right here, but I mean, it is extended how far above the 10-day at this point? 50%.
Yeah.
That seems a bit unsustainable to me.
Exactly. So the thing is, it's just very important to have your exit strategy. There's a couple things you have to realize. Look, when you've got a big winner like this in such a short period of time, you might not realize that this has just become a much larger weight in your portfolio. And so that means if this comes down, you have more money at risk in this stock, more than you started out with. And so it's going to hit your portfolio harder if this does come down. And generally, when we see something that's that extended, when it does come down, they do tend to come down hard. And so it's very important that you have your exit strategy. This is something that we've been talking a lot about on IBD Live, with whether it's the EV stocks, the Chinese EV stocks like
Right.
NIO, or some of those ilk, or stocks like this with Palantir. You just have to be very careful. In fact, this is a leaderboard stock, and we brought it down by half yesterday. And that might look crazy because it's like, oh, well, you guys are idiots because you missed out on this 20% move today. But again, the way that these come down often is so fast that selling a little bit into strength usually will help you out, and it just kind of reduces some of that risk that you're getting because of that increased position size.
Yeah, so selling into strength, that is part of the exit strategy. If you're still holding some shares, what are you looking for now? A close below this day today, or what?
Yeah, so I mean that's a rough that's a rough gauge, because when you have a stock that goes up 20% in a day, that low is pretty far. So one of the things I often look for, it just signs of a reversal, and again, it's not always a bad idea to just sell a little bit into that strength. But if you start seeing weakness come in, it might be a good idea to kind of take some money off the table early, before that weakness has a chance to build on itself, because with these big moves, there do tend to be big moves down.
All right, well, let's take a look at Corsair Gaming, because this is a telltale example of what can happen when you do see these really huge moves. Again, not necessarily saying that we're going to see the exact same thing, with Palantir, but we saw this stock coming down some 17% today after a very huge move.
Yeah, so this is kind of just what you have to be aware of. And while this isn't necessarily going to happen to Palantir this week or next week, this is the look that happens often with these stocks. I can't tell you when it's going to happen, but this is usually what happens. So just be aware of that. Have your exit strategy. And, this is a good example. Okay, if you had sold this 2 days ago, you were probably kicking yourself saying, oh my gosh, that was so stupid. I missed out on that big move yesterday. But now, today, you're looking at it and like, okay, I'm back to the same level I was 2 days ago. That's usually the way it works. So our goal here is not to get out at the very tippy top of the stock. The goal is to get as much as we can out of it while also managing our risk. So again, that's very important that you're keeping in mind that as these stocks go up so much, you do have increased risk just by the sheer fact that they're a larger part of your portfolio, and so can have a bigger impact when they come down, and they do tend to come down hard.
And this was our stock of the day today. We usually are featuring stocks that are actionable, but in this case, we really wanted to take the opportunity to talk about how it's a good idea to take profits when you do see these high flying stocks like that, what to look for, because this name is another one that was on our radar in the very early going. While it was still in this consolidation here, we were talking about it quite a bit on IBD Live during this time, when it crossed this early area, and also when it broke out of that IPO base. So a lot of great lessons with some of these stocks, Justin.
Yeah, Arusha Paris was all over this one. He was the one that kind of brought it to my attention and brought it to the attention of a lot of people on IBD Live. But exactly as you said, IBD stock of the day isn't just about, stocks that are actionable. The whole point of it is really about teaching, and giving lessons. And so that's why it was chosen as stock of the day today, because there is a valuable lesson here in selling rules.
Yeah, and you can find the stock of the day articles every day on the investors.com homepage. We also have a section on our site under the research tab, I believe, for that as well. So we hope you check that out. All right, everyone, that is it for today. Remember, it's a holiday tomorrow. The market is closed. So we hope you have a happy Thanksgiving. We'll see you back here on Friday, which is a half day for the market. So you will get the stock market today wrap up at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. We look forward to seeing you there. And we're also going to have IBD Live on Friday morning, Justin, and we'll wrap up this holiday trading week, see what it brings us.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back here Friday, and have a great Thanksgiving.